There's a certain rhythm to my mornings in the sleepy suburb of Maplewood. It's a rhythm dictated by the chirping of birds, the gentle rustling of leaves, and the soft patting of Max's paws as he and I take our morning walk. Max, my golden retriever, with his perpetually wagging tail and soulful eyes, is the embodiment of unassuming joy. His presence in my life is as comforting as a well-loved quilt, frayed in some places but warm and dependable. Life in Maplewood is predictably serene, save for the occasional ripple caused by the neighborhood's self-appointed sentry, Karen. Karen, with her impeccably maintained garden and her determination to enforce every obscure rule in the Homeowners Association manual, considers herself the guardian of our community's standards. She patrols the neighborhood with the vigilance of a crow, her sharp eyes ever watchful for the slightest transgression. It began innocuously enough. A note slipped under my door. A friendly reminder, it read in neat, precise script, that pets should be leashed at all times. The irony was not lost on me. Max was never without his leash on our walks. Perhaps Karen had seen me in my backyard, where Max roamed freely within the confines of my picket fence. Still, I chose to ignore the note, assuming it was a general missive distributed to all pet owners. But Karen's notes continued. Like autumn leaves, they appeared with predictable regularity, each one a paper-thin slice of her disapproval. Please ensure your dog is quiet after 9 p.m. Remember to clean up after your pet. Each missive was more pointed than the last, yet none struck true. Max was as silent as a shadow come nightfall, and I prided myself on being a responsible pet owner. The true nature of Karen's campaign revealed itself one late afternoon. Returning from our walk, I noticed a small gathering of neighbors on the sidewalk, huddled like conspirators beneath the street lamp's golden glow. As I approached, I caught snippets of conversation. The words, vote, ban, and dog floated through the air like unwelcome specters. It seemed Karen had launched a campaign to have dogs banned from the neighborhood. All because of Max and her imagined grievances. My neighbors, more bemused than irate, assured me it was unlikely to gain traction. Yet, the thought lingered, a pebble of doubt lodged in my mind. Still, I refused to let it sour my love for our home or Max's simple joy. Instead, I resolved to meet Karen's pettiness with the same grace and calm that Max displayed in the face of a thunderstorm. The idea came to me while watching Max one rainy Sunday. He lay sprawled on the living room floor, his belly exposed to the world, blissfully unaware of the storm raging outside. It struck me then. What if I could harness Max's innate charm and goodwill, not just to diffuse Karen's hostility, but to unite the community? The idea blossomed in my mind, a wildflower pushing through cracks in concrete. I would propose Max as the official mascot of the HOA, a symbol of community spirit and unity, his boundless energy and goodwill a testament to the neighborhood's potential for harmony. As the rain pattered against the windows, I imagined the neighborhood rallying around Max. Perhaps Karen's campaign would falter in the face of his undeniable appeal. Perhaps she would see him not as a nuisance, but as a heartwarming fixture of our shared space. Perhaps she would even lower her guard and find humor in the irony. That evening, as Max rested his head on my lap, I began drafting a proposal. Not one to tackle Karen's hostility directly, but to turn it on its head, to transform her vendetta into a community celebration. It was a gamble, certainly, but one I was willing to take. For Max, for the neighborhood, and perhaps in some small way, for Karen herself. The morning sun stretched its golden fingers through the blinds, casting stripes across the floor where my dog, Max, lay sprawled in contented oblivion. His breaths were rhythmic, a soothing melody against the backdrop of escalating chaos. His tail occasionally thumped against the floor, a gentle reminder of his unwavering happiness. Meanwhile, the neighborhood simmered with tension. Karen had shifted the gears of her campaign into overdrive. Her latest newsletter, laced with a saccharine politeness that barely masked its venom, landed in mailboxes with a thud. New Policies for a Harmonized Community, it was titled. A masterclass in passive-aggressive finesse. And yet it was impossible to ignore. A magnet for curiosity. Flipping through its pages, I found regulations veiled under the guise of harmony, but designed with precision to target my household. Pets exceeding 20 pounds are discouraged from common areas, read one rule. Max, with his boisterous Labrador enthusiasm, certainly tipped that scale. Frequent barking will result in fines, stated another. Max was as silent as a shadow, his bark reserved for moments of utmost necessity. But facts rarely interfered with Karen's narrative. In gatherings by the mailboxes, whispers floated like pollen. They spoke of noise complaints, each more exaggerated than the last. A few neighbors exchanged knowing glances, their eyes hinting at allegiance. Others shuffled uncomfortably, caught in the crossfire of community and conscience. Karen's influence unfurled like a poisonous vine, wrapping itself around the HOA meetings. I attended one, curious, unyielding, a chess game of polite smiling and veiled jabs. Karen stood at the helm, her clipboard an accessory to her authority. Her smile was all teeth, predatory, yet polished. Her voice sliced through the room, drowning out dissent with its sheer volume. Yet, I said nothing. I watched, absorbed every detail. Her manicured fingers pointed to charts and graphs, a symphony of bureaucracy, each line carefully drawn to tighten the noose around Max and me. Behind the theatrics, I could see the insecurity. Her need for control was palpable, a thin veneer over her own chaos. Irony dripped from every policy, each crafted in response to perceived slights. Meanwhile, Max became a reluctant celebrity. Children adored him, their laughter chasing the shadows from our path during evening walks. His popularity was a thorn in Karen's side, a quiet rebellion that needed no speech. Max, with his gentle eyes and wagging tail, was everything she could not control. His presence, unintended but effective, began to sow seeds of dissent. Neighbors started to question, to see beyond the facade of harmony she peddled. The absurdity of it all. A dog, my dog, as the unwitting catalyst for change. And so, the stage was set. Karen's fortress of rules, built brick by bureaucratic brick, stood on shaky ground. A challenge was inevitable. Yet I waited. Patience, after all, was a virtue. And revenge, as Karen would come to learn, is a dish best served with a wagging tail. The minutes from the latest HOA meeting lay in front of me, as innocuous as a grocery list. But the words between the lines were sharp, like shards of glass. Karen's resolution to ban dogs, thinly veiled as a concern for neighborhood safety, had been tabled until next month. Her signature, tight and formal, hung at the bottom of the page like an accusation. My dog, Max, lay beside me, oblivious to the storm looping around his existence. His chest rose and fell in a rhythm that seemed to mock the chaos, a reassuring metronome amidst discord. I had begun documenting everything. It started as a way to understand, to keep track of the slow crawl of bureaucracy. But it grew into something more. A tapestry woven with threads of Karen's contradictions and double standards. Her zeal for maintaining the character of the neighborhood had turned into a personal vendetta, and she wielded her clipboard as if it were a scepter. The evidence was there. Emails, complaints about lawn heights, whispers of her own indiscretions, and, most critically, the way she dismissed Max, as if he were merely a blemish on her precious landscape. There was irony in her crusade, an irony not lost on the other members, though most stayed silent, afraid to stir the pot. So, I prepared quietly, like a chess player reimagining the board. My strategy was subtle, a countermove that would fold back upon itself, unveiling layers she hadn't anticipated. I knew her weaknesses, her blind spots, her love for the neighborhood's annual picnic, the biggest event of the year. The plan formed as I watched Max chase a butterfly, his joy infectious, pure. The picnic was the perfect stage, a canvas waiting for the right stroke of color. And so the day came, sun-drenched and buzzing with the hum of excited chatter. Tables lined with homemade pies and artisanal breads stood sentinel, while laughter wove through the air like invisible threads. This was the heart of the community, where even Karen's authority softened into something superficial. As the festivities peaked, I quietly unfurled my surprise. A banner, handcrafted and vibrant, stretched across the entrance. "Welcome, Max, our official HOA mascot." The letters danced in the breeze, bold and unapologetic. There was a murmur, a wave of surprise that rippled through the gathering. Faces turned, some smiling, others whispering behind raised hands. Karen's expression was a portrait of shock, her clipboard trembling, caught between indignation and disbelief. This was my move, a declaration wrapped in cheerfulness. Max, with his wagging tail and eyes wide with wonder, trotted beside me, the unexpected hero of the day. Children flocked to him, their giggles a symphony of innocence and acceptance. It was a scene Karen couldn't contest, without unraveling the very fabric she claimed to defend. Her approach was inevitable, her composure barely masking the tempest beneath. She leaned in, her voice low, a blade wrapped in silk. But I met her gaze, unyielding, my silence a fortress. The power had shifted, and she knew it. The irony was complete. In trying to rid herself of Max, she had elevated him. He was now a symbol, a mascot not just for the HOA, but for resilience against pettiness. The neighborhood had chosen sides, and it was clear which side had won. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the picnic in golden hues, I realized this was more than just revenge. It was a reminder that community was built on more than rules and regulations. It was built on understanding, on joy, on acceptance, and sometimes on the quiet rebellion of a wagging tail. The garden party glowed under a canopy of fairy lights, their warm glow casting a gentle ambiance over the gathering. I stood at the edge, cradling a glass of lemonade. Across the way, Karen's rigid smile flickered like a candle under the scrutiny of the neighborhood. Her forced cheerfulness seemed as fragile as spun sugar, ready to crack at the slightest provocation. The guests milled about, each one subtly glancing towards where Charlie, my golden retriever, lay regal on a patch of grass. His presence was a symphony of calm, a stark contrast to Karen's stormy demeanor. And there it was. The new brass plaque announcing him as our community's official mascot nestled beside him like a testament of victory. Karen's face twitched every time her eyes flitted towards it. The air itself buzzed with the tension of unspoken words. Neighbors with glasses in hand encircled Charlie, making little fuss over their newfound mascot. Children giggled as they petted him, their laughter pealing like bells, innocent and oblivious to the undercurrent swirling around the adults. I watched the scene unfold as one might a chess match, each piece moving in a rhythm of unspoken allegiances. Karen's allies seemed to falter, their solidarity splintering under the weight of collective disapproval. It was as if the balance had shifted, the scales tilting in favor of quiet defiance. Charlie wagged his tail at the attention, a golden blur against the emerald grass. To them, he was more than just a dog. He embodied a certain freedom, a break from the rigid confines of Karen's rule. Each pat and scratch behind the ears was a small rebellion, a silent vote in my favor. The irony was not lost on me. Here was Karen, the self-appointed guardian of the HOA's codes and conduct, undone by the very community she sought to control. Her authority, once ironclad, now seemed as brittle as autumn leaves underfoot. Every interaction rippled with understated drama. Eyes met, words exchanged in hushed tones. A soft murmur rose as I approached Charlie, a chorus of approval. I knelt beside him, feeling the warmth of his fur beneath my fingers. His eyes, trusting and wise, seemed to tell me that we had finally found our place. Karen's voice, when it finally came, was like ice cracking. A single line murmured to a nearby cohort, its impact resonating in the air. I didn't need to hear the words to know their intent. They were a last, desperate attempt to claw back control, to mend what was irrevocably broken. But as I rose, the neighborhood around me seemed to close ranks. Their support was unspoken, yet palpable. A tide turning, sweeping away the remnants of Karen's reign. We were more than a neighborhood now. We were a community, united by an unassuming mascot with a heart of gold. Charlie, in his quiet, unassuming way, had become the emblem of our resistance. As the evening wore on, I saw the subtle shifting of allegiances, of whispers turning to laughter, of smiles exchanged in solidarity. It was the birth of something new, a landscape where kindness and camaraderie flourished over rule and regulation. And in that moment I knew we had not just won against Karen. We had found our voice. The meeting left a bitter taste, a cocktail of adrenaline and disbelief that lingered long after the room had emptied. Karen's voice had been a relentless tide, washing over the objections of the other homeowners with a stubborn certainty. Her attempt to ban my dog, Winston, was another stone in her ever-growing wall of control. But I'd seen the cracks. The air outside felt electric, a storm brewing beneath a deceptively calm sky. Winston trotted beside me, blissfully unaware of the turmoil swirling around him. His wagging tail was a metronome of optimism, each swish a reminder of his unwavering loyalty. He was blissfully indifferent to Karen's machinations, and perhaps in that innocence lay our quiet power. I had a plan. It was slow brewing, like a pot of coffee left to percolate to perfect strength, the kind of plan that required patience, precision, and a little bit of legal finesse. I had always believed in the power of subtlety, the impact of a whisper, in a world obsessed with shouts. Karen's heavy-handed attempts to bend the rules had left a trail of breadcrumbs. All I needed to do was follow them. Winston, unaware of the war being waged on his behalf, looked up at me, his eyes bright with canine wisdom. I scratched his ears, drawing comfort from the simple act. This was our fight, but it was a fight that called for a different kind of strategy, one that played to my strengths. I spent the next few days gathering evidence, documenting every overstep, every violation of the rules Karen held so dear. The HOA bylaws were a dense forest, but I'd learned to navigate its shadows with the precision of a skilled cartographer. It was an irony she'd never see coming. Her own rules wielded like a scalpel against her. The legal steps were quiet, almost meditative. A letter here, a form there. Each piece fell into place with a satisfying click, an intricate puzzle assembling itself one slow movement at a time. I reached out to a friend, a lawyer with a sharp mind and a keen sense of justice. My friend reveled in Karen's overconfidence, strategically positioning each legal maneuver with the confidence of a chess grandmaster. Winston became a symbol, not just for me, but for the community. A quiet rebellion flickered to life, spreading like wildfire among the residents. They rallied behind us, their whispers circling like birds preparing to take flight. Karen had underestimated the power of quiet resolve, the strength in numbers when hearts beat in unison. It was a testament to human nature. When pushed too far, even the most placid of us can become a force to be reckoned with. The moment came quietly, like morning light slipping through the blinds. The HOA gathered once more, the air tense with anticipation. Winston stood beside me, his presence a calming balm. Karen's expression shifted as she read the official statement, her eyes scanning the legalese crafted with precision and clarity. Her lips pressed into a thin line, the color draining from her face. A single line of dialogue broke the silence, delivered with the understated weight of inevitability. Winston is now our official mascot. The room erupted in applause, the sound a tidal wave of relief and triumph. Karen's defeat was palpable, her authority crumbling like a house of cards caught in a hurricane. I caught Winston's eye, a silent understanding passing between us. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, a calm, quiet victory, one that tasted sweeter than any words could describe. We had won, not just for us, but for everyone who dared to stand against the tide. The air was thick with anticipation as the evening of the community meeting finally arrived, a gathering that promised more than just mundane discussions about landscaping and parking violations. I felt the tension humming through the crowd like static electricity, a collective awareness that tonight something monumental was bound to happen. The community hall was packed, chairs arranged in perfect rows, but not a single one was left unoccupied. It seemed everyone had come to witness the reckoning. Karen sat poised at the head of the table, a self-appointed monarch surveying her kingdom with a steely gaze. Her expression was as tight as a drum, each line of her face etched with the certainty of authority. I watched as she shuffled her papers methodically, an orchestra conductor about to cue a symphony of discord. But tonight the tune would depart from her usual score. The meeting began with the usual drivel, reports and updates that droned on, a lullaby of bureaucratic monotony that threatened to sedate the restless crowd. But beneath this facade, I could sense the undercurrent of revolution whispering through the assembly. It was the quiet before the storm, the pregnant pause before a crescendo. After what seemed an eternity, the agenda finally turned to the topic that had galvanized this gathering, the issue of the neighborhood's beloved canine resident, Baxter. Karen's mission to banish him had been thwarted, and now the floor was open for discussion, or perhaps resolution. My heart thrummed in my chest as I rose from my seat, every eye in the room following my movement. I carried with me not just a proposal, but the weight of a community's silent plea for change. As I made my case, I could feel the room leaning in, their collective breath held in suspense. The words flowed from me like a river breaking through a dam, each argument a testament to the love and unity Baxter had unwittingly fostered among us. Baxter, the golden retriever with a heart as big as the universe, had become more than just a pet. He was a symbol of resilience, a beacon of camaraderie, and now, potentially, an emblem of our community, a role he had earned simply by being himself. A mirthful irony given Karen's initial crusade. As I spoke, Karen's composure began to crack, her carefully constructed veneer of control slipping like a mask in the rain. I could see the flicker of disbelief in her eyes, a tempest of frustration tempered with helplessness. The very structure she had so rigidly maintained was slipping through her fingers like sand. The room erupted in applause, not the polite kind that follows a performance, but the thunderous, wholehearted kind that resonates deep within the soul. Baxter, sensing the shift in energy, padded to my side with his tail wagging like a banner of victory. His presence, a silent testimony to the evening's triumph. In the end, there was no need for a formal vote. Consensus washed over us like a cleansing tide, sweeping away the remnants of discord Karen had sought to sow. Baxter was unanimously celebrated as our official mascot, a title he wore with the grace and dignity only a golden retriever could muster. Karen, sidelined and silent, retreated from her throne of authority, her influence diminished to a whisper in the wind. The community, renewed and united, rose from the ashes of her regime like a phoenix, vibrant and whole. As we left the hall, Baxter at my side, my heart swelled with pride, not just for him, but for us all. We had reclaimed our narrative, woven a tapestry of resilience and unity from the threads of discord. And in that moment, I realized something simple yet profound. Sometimes the loudest voices are not heard through words, but through quiet acts of defiance and love.